trying a new position today in the study here. We're doing the Dark Ages. With the dissolution of Charlemagne's empire, the papacy became the plaything of a few aristocratic Italian families, notably the Crescenti and the Tuscolani. I hope I said that right. The popes at this period were some of the worst in its history, which is saying something. Here are a few of the lowlights. John VIII, 872 to 882, was the first pope to be assassinated, which would be bad enough, but the people who killed him were his own priests. They poisoned him, but the poison was slow to work, and they got bored and bashed in his skull. In 896, Pope Formosus, the name means good-looking, was put on trial by his enemies. What made this unusual was that he had been dead for 8 months, so he'd probably lost some of his looks by then. Anyway, he was a good, efficient pope, and naturally that made him enemies among the not-so-good. He was succeeded by Boniface VI, who died 15 days after his election. And then along came Stephen VI, who hated Formosus so much that he exhumed the late pope's body, dressed it in the official robes, sat him in a chair, and accused him of perjury and of coveting the papacy. Formosus, who remained strangely silent during his trial, was found guilty, and his body was flung into the Tiber, minus the 3 fingers of his right hand that he had used to give blessings. The trial became known as the Cadaver Synod, the name of a goth rock band, if ever I heard one. Immediately afterwards, Rome was hit by an earthquake, and Formosus' corpse resurfaced downriver and started performing miracles. God had passed judgment on Stephen's actions. 6 months later, a more permanent judgment was implemented. Stephen was deposed by an angry mob, thrown into prison, and strangled. Many popes lasted only a short time. Stephen's replacement, Romanus, was deposed after just 4 months. His successor, Theodore II, lasted only 20 days. But at least he did have time to organise for the now rather damp corpse of Formosus to be reburied in St. Peter's Basilica. Leo V was pope from July to September 903, making him the only pope who ever took on the papacy as a summer job. Plenty of popes met violent deaths. John X was suffocated with pillows. Stephen VIII was brutally tortured and died of his injuries. There were also several anti-popes, upstarts, pretenders who grabbed the pontifical throne during a kind of coup. The aforementioned Leo V was deposed and imprisoned by an anti-pope called Christopher. Then both the anti-pope and the official pope Leo were killed by a man called Sergius, who then became Pope Sergius III. He hung on to power for a few years, mainly through the support of a fearsome local warlord called Theophylact, and his even more fearsome wife, Theodora. Sergius was very close to the family of Theophylact, very close. In fact, it was rumoured that he had an illegitimate child by Mariosa, Theophylact's 15-year-old daughter. True, you decide. Sergius was another Formosus hater, and so he annulled any ordinations performed by Formosus. This caused a chain reaction. If Formosus' ordinations were illegal, then anyone ordained by the people he ordained were also illegitimate. It was chaos. No one could work out who was an ordained priest and who wasn't. This was a terrible, dark period, which is why the 16th century historian Caesar Baronius called it the Saeculum Obscurum, the Dark Age. He might have called it this because of the paucity of written records, but it certainly works as a value judgment. The term was later applied more generally to the period by later historians, hence the Dark Ages. Protestant German theologians rather less charitably called it the pornocracy. The Pope's behaviour was so bad that even the wildest stories gained credibility. The most famous of these was the story of Pope Joan, a woman who disguised herself as a man, became Pope, and was only discovered when she somehow became pregnant. I say somehow. I do know how it happened, but I can't work out how it happened, if you see what I mean. The story gained traction around Europe. In the Reformation, Jan Hus even used it as part of his evidence of the corruption of the Catholic Church. But it just wasn't true. The story spawned another myth, that to avoid another Pope Joan, a new procedure was introduced whereby at the enthronement of a new pope, a cardinal had the specific responsibility of checking out the papal regalia, as it were. This story is recounted in a number of places, including the works of one Felix Hammerlein, who wrote in 1490, In order to demonstrate the Pope's, worthiness, his testicles are felt by the junior cleric present as testimony of his male sex. When this is found to be so, the person who feels them shouts out in a loud voice, "He has testicles!" And all the clerics present reply, "God be praised." This has never been part of the official liturgy, but they should really introduce it. It would liven up events no end. Oh dear, out of tragedy comes comedy. Bye for now.